Hello guys, I have not done a thrifting haul video in a while, so I thought I would do that. I went the other day. It's probably the only day this week that I'll really have to do any bit of thrifting. So I had a few hours and I hit 2 thrift stores, and so I found something really good, which I kind of hinted at in the title and thumbnail. But I also just found some other stuff, and I thought I would just share the items that I picked up and kind of the reasoning or why I decided to get what I got. As we go along, if I have interesting comps or things that I've already figured out that I can share with you, I will do that, but I'll try not to drag this out too much. So the first place I went to was my Little Bins thrift clearance center. That's local. It's not a Goodwill. And I've talked about it before, especially in my What Sold videos, because a lot of what is in my What Sold videos comes from this little bargain center. And I get really good deals. I can get, that day, the stuff I'm about to show you cost me $5 for the whole lot of things. So anyway, it's kind of hit or miss, but I found a few good things at that place. The really awesome find that I'm going to share with you was from the other thrift store. So I'm not going to share that right away, but I promise I won't leave it till all the way at the end. Anyway, so I always check the shoes. Most of the shoes are beat up, but I did pick up this pair of Skechers, and they're not in the greatest condition. They do have some wear on the inside. But the reason I picked these up is because vintage Skechers are having a moment. It all goes back to that 90s Y2K kind of look that's popular. So there's chunky soles. This one's not as big of a platform sole as some of the ones that are selling for really high prices. And anyway, you can see the Skechers label, just kind of an older looking label. They are redoing like new, you can buy new Skechers now that have that old-fashioned original Y2K look to them. But anyway, so I picked these up. I picked up another pair like last week from the bins as well, and they're kind of like a light tan suede, but same thing, kind of that chunky sole. So that's what we're looking for. Do a search of eBay Skechers, vintage Skechers. Especially, you can throw the word jammers in there. Those are the really big platforms. $70, $80. It's crazy. Skechers, vintage Skechers. Who knew? Okay. Anyway, so then of course I go over to the hats because a trip to the bins, I had to replenish our hat supply. I sold a hat right as I was about to start this video. We sold one that was just a beanie. You'll see it in a What Sold video. Anyway, I found this hat. It's new with tags. It is a Robin Ruth stuff. I don't generally pick up if it's like at a regular thrift store. It's usually purses or bags or scarves or hats or things like that. And it's branded with states and cities and place names. So this one happens to be Connecticut, and it's a nice good winter snowboarding type hat, new with tags. And it looks like they tried to sell it at the regular store first for $4. Nobody took it, not even $2 on half price day. Nobody's from Connecticut. Who needs a Connecticut hat in Montana, right? But someone online might need it, so that's what we're going to count on. I'll throw that back in there. This was actually a pretty nice looking hat. This one is Travis Matthew. I can go up close, the golf brand. I've sold Travis Matthew shirts pretty easily. This is personalized to a local golf course, Buffalo Hills. But otherwise it's in really good shape. So I grabbed that one. I grabbed this University of Montana hat. It's a wool hat. And it has no other tags inside, but it is made in the USA. So as you know, I have a couple videos about baseball caps, and I think the one where it's me and Mr. Pish Posh, we talk a little bit more about vintage hats and and what we've picked up and why and everything. This does have a little bit of like a stretch or damage or something on the inside, but I still think somebody's going to want that University of Montana hat, vintage hat. Pick that up. This one I don't know anything about. I still haven't looked it up yet. The brand is called Poncho, and it's from Austin, Texas. World's best fishing shirts, maybe. Okay, so fishing brand out of Texas, Poncho Outdoors. I've never heard of it, but it was in really good shape, so I went ahead and grabbed that. Now, just because things aren't in great shape doesn't mean I don't grab them. Here's another vintage hat. This is my husband loves this when we just go totally random. Okay, so Western Saltwater Fisherman's Magazine. Like, hopefully someone wants that, right? So that's going to need a little bit of shaping, or it's fairly clean, but it does need to kind of be shaped a little bit. And here's even more random. It's the Texas Trappers and Fur Hunters Association. This one is pretty dirty. That'll get washed. And again, these are, you know, just vintage hats. Okay. So it's kind of like, you know, we've kind of come to realize that I won't talk about hats too much because I've talked about them a lot. But it's kind of like a lot of different things that we end up finding that sell pretty well. Sorry, one more. This one might end up being a keeper. Nothing special. It's just, it was made out of wool. So this one might be either me or my husband. And I'm not sure if it's too stretched out, if it'll even work. So that might just go back to the thrift store. But I grabbed it. But anyway, yeah. So, you know, hats, the theme of them just... It's always surprised us how the more obscure sometimes sells the fastest, which is crazy. As I apply the same principle like to coffee mugs and things like that. Okay, so what other stuff I found at the thrift store, very interesting. This is still the bins, and I noticed them putting a cardboard box under one of the bins, and it was full of like, it just looks like an older gentleman's shop of stuff. And there was a bunch of like boxes of they're cardboard, but cigarette boxes. I'm not too interested in that kind of thing, but I realized he was just using it as like all these little boxes were either empty or had spilled out, or he was just using them to hold stuff. So this was kind of fun. I saw these little tags in here. This totally reminded me of something that we, like the type of stuff we used to sell on Etsy. We would sell little bits and bobs and things that artists could use in their assemblage and different type of artwork. And so things like this were always popular, but it turned out to be all these little tags are dog license or pet license tags, pet registration things. And they all have dates on them. And some are the 50s, 1950s in Los Angeles. And this one's cool. These two are 1942. Anyway, so interesting. It's to show they have their rabies vaccination done. This one's a license, June 1942. The others are 1950s. And it just made me think that, you know, as the pets passed away, maybe they... Ooh, is that one 1930? That one might be 1930. Interesting. Okay, so I looked these up on eBay because at first we're like, oh, let's just throw them all together in a lot. But I looked them up on eBay and people collect these things. So I will do more research, but the further back you go, we're talking crazy money. So I'll throw up a couple comps just for fun. I had some, the top selling ones were from the 1800s, and those are selling in the hundreds. Okay, I mean, you can imagine you're not going to find one of those every day. But, and honestly, you're not going to find these every day either, because like this is the first time in all my thrifting years that I've actually found vintage dog tags. But anyway, the older back, like the better. So, and then there's some that were like shaped like a dog, and those seem to do pretty good. There was a couple canine licenses that like for police dogs that did pretty well as well. So very interesting. I'm glad I grabbed that little box out of there. I dug around in that little box. It's more with my husband in mind because that's the type of thing he would have gone for if he was there. So I just kind of grabbed anything that looked halfway interesting. This is just another, again, the box doesn't have what it was originally for, but a bunch of little copper tacks. Okay, there's a couple boxes of those and some just random tacks and nails and things like that. These were called screen tacks. I don't know that they're worth anything. Somebody does have like one of these listed for like $10 or $12, but I don't think there's any in sold, but it might be the type of thing that we will go ahead and put on Etsy. You never know. Same kind of thing with this. I just love the packaging, the color of the packaging. It's a braided fiber screw anchor, and it's roll plugs. They still make them. The company's still in business doing it. So I think same thing. I can't remember if there was any in sold, but people were selling them in the older packaging. You never know. You never know. This was fun. There was some rulers at the bottom of this bag. One's a caliper. Not sure what that ended up being. My husband, he got excited when he saw that, but then he said, actually, this one might be worth a little bit more. It's a Stanley, so it's like a, you know, a ruler, like I said, but it folds up like they did, and it's brass. The only thing is it does have some damage right here, maybe like a burn, and but a Stanley number 84 ruler. Some of these have sold for about $40, but then some sold for a lot less. So I'm sure it'll depend on condition, and we're not sure how that'll affect that. But even $20, $25, considering how little I'm paying for all these different things. Okay, then this ruler doesn't, it's just an older wood ruler. It's not advertising or anything like that. And again, like I said, I forgot, he didn't update me on that one. And then the only other couple things I grabbed out of there were a couple of lighters. Now, this one can be good. It's called a Scripto View lighter. So it's really hard to see. I don't know if he's able to clean that in there or how that will affect it. But it ended up being, you know, usually there can be a picture, there can be a hunter, there can be a fisherman, there can be advertising, and that'll like add to the value. This one is Bat Masterson. So interesting information about Bat Masterson. We end up on these rabbit holes of research when we sell vintage. I don't know if you guys too do that too. Leave me a comment down below if you get stuck in the research. But it's not even like to research in order to figure out the value. It's just like, well, who's Bat Masterson and why does he sound familiar? And so all of a sudden you're reading articles about him. And just to let you know, he was a Army Scout, a lawman, a professional gambler. He was a journalist, and he hung out with, like, you know, he was in the Old West, right? In the frontiers. So, you know, he was hanging out with like Wyatt Earp and stuff like that. So that was the late 19th century into, yeah, late from 1880s. No. Oi. Anyway, it was like mid to late 1800s is when he was kind of doing his thing. So it's a little picture of a bowler hat and a cane, walking stick. Rabbit holes. Okay, but the thing is, I think he's got to figure out whether he can get this clean. It still has value either way, I believe. And you're supposed to be able to see this on the back. I think it's like a tombstone or something. And he's going to see if he can clean that up so that we can see it better. This one is interesting. This is what's called a semi-automatic lighter. You press the button and then that opens, and that's supposed to like light the flame right then. Has a little button. It is personalized. We looked in solds. There's one in solds, but the seller put it together with another one. And that sold for $65 for the two of them together. So we'll see if this one will sell. There's none listed right now. So the brand on that was something I don't even know. I think it turns out that it's a German company, but not one of the big named ones that that we all know. Okay. Okay, we're still at the bins. Believe it or not, we're still at the bins. I picked up this little sewing box thingy. It's just basically, it holds the spools of thread and the bobbins and needles and such. And it looks like I can get about $15 for that. Ouch. If I don't break it. And then the other thing that was at the bins that day was someone's like needlepoint collection. I didn't get all of it. I kind of cherry picked, but I just kind of went through, and there were bins scattered kind of all over the place. And so I just kind of went through and started grabbing what's interesting. Most of these are just the booklet. It's not like it's the whole kit. So I grabbed a few that I just thought were pretty and interesting. So as I was doing research, some of the ones that I had picked are listed, but not sold. I did pick up this pillow kit, Ocean Waves, and those are selling for about $10 to $12. This one has potential P. Buckley Moss. It's a birth announcement, but it looks like someone provided the linen and the thread. Like they kind of, it's not original shrink wrap, so probably a store put something together, kind of made a kit out of the booklet. This one is interesting. It's called Albuquerque Sunrise Teapot. Now, some of his Anthony Manieri designs, some of his people have asking prices of like $40 or so. And there's a couple in solds that did really well. And I think this is the one I was looking at where some actually did pretty well at auction, which was interesting. So I'll double check that. I didn't go far back. This was just the, I didn't go into Terra Peak or anything like that. This was all just the, the quick eBay search. But anyway, yeah, there weren't a ton of like the big name needlework kits. Actually, those, when I went over to the other store, which is connected, it's the same company, but it's just their regular thrift store. When I went over to there, they had a bin, must have been the same person who donated everything. And that was more like the Busilla and the Dimensions kits and things like that. There wasn't anything super interesting in those, and so I didn't bother picking any up. But anyway, since I was hardly paying anything at the bins, I was more willing to kind of gamble. So a lot of them are just kind of smaller designers and smaller artists. This was kind of funny. I did find a comp for this. It's the Candy Corn family. It's just a hand-painted little design. And I got a bunch of the family members except the dad. Now what's funny is that on eBay, the dad has already sold to someone. I mean, maybe I should look. Maybe somebody sold it in my area. Anyway, I didn't find the dad, but I found all the other family members. So and the dad kit sold for $25. So I'm gonna list these. I might just lot them all up. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on these. I might just lot them up, and maybe the person who bought the dad will find them and buy the rest of the family. Funny. And then some of these others I did pick up because this was, who is it? Jean Hilton. I did do a quick search on my phone. I don't generally look at my phone often in there. But I did double check that Jean Hilton, there was a bunch of stuff that was coming up on eBay, so she was at least well known enough. And I just got where, like, if she had a series, like these are called little guys, 8th pair in a series of mini designs, I got like all of them as close as I could to make a lot, because I don't want to list them individually. So hopefully that works out. Okay. Hopefully, and I don't have people going, would you just sell the one? That always happens when I try lotting things up. Okay, so that was a pretty good day. Like I said, everything I've shown you so far was $5 for all of it. And I don't know, I think we're sitting pretty good with what we found. Okay, so then at the regular thrift store, which is kind of across the street and down the road, I ended up, I'll just kind of go in order. I ended up, so that day, let's see, kitchen goods were half off, and so were clothing and shoes were half off. So every day they have, you know, different categories that are on sale. They do price kind of high, and then the half off kind of puts things at a normal thrift store price. I picked up this pair of Merrells. I ended up paying $10 for them, and they are in really good shape. There were quite a few like hiking, like Keens and Merrells there, but these were the ones in the best shape. And let's see, they are women's, size 9.5. Anyway, I'll have to look up the style name and see what they're worth, but I figured they were hopefully worth more than $10. And anytime, you know, we have a pair of shoes that are in such good shape, they can be listed so fast that it's worth it. Okay, the only other pair of shoes I bought that day, the shoes were half off, were these little baby Keens. So this is just kind of something, I used to sell a lot more of these. I only paid $3 for the pair, and you know, it might be like a $15 sale. And they do need to be cleaned, but I could still, a lot of times what happens on Keens is the size little thingy is worn off, but I could still read it, and they're US 10. And we'll just throw these in the dishwasher. Not with my dishes, but with other stuff that needs to be washed, and they just need the dust kind of taken out of them. So I'll just do that. Then I picked up this bracelet. They have a lot of jewelry like in their case that can be kind of high priced, but then they have some jewelry just hanging out, and it's one of the few thrift stores in my area anymore that ever has just jewelry you can just buy. eBay sends everything to their online and such. But anyway, I just thought it was such an over-the-top kind of bracelet. And I can't tell how old it is. It's got, I don't know, it's got so many elements of older stuff. And I did a quick Google search, Google Lens, but nothing specific was coming up. It's not riveted. So I don't know. It's just this crazy bracelet. That was my thinking, was sometimes crazier the better, right? Okay, then in the kitchenware, since I had in mind kitchenware was half off, I picked up these bowls. This was probably my mistake of the thrifting day. Pier 1, made in Japan. So older Pier 1, they're just super cute, right? They're like melons or something like that. Well, I should have stopped and looked at solds. Sometimes I get lazy, I get tired of looking things up, and so I think, they're only $3 for both of them. I'll just get them. They'll be super cute. So yeah, there's hardly any in solds. And there's a bunch listed, so I'm like, they're not super rare. Anyway, hopefully that won't be a waste of time. I'm gonna put those on Ruby Lane, I believe, because my competition will be much less. Then as far as breakables, I meant to unplastic these so I could show you one, but it's a teacup and saucer. I thought it was super cute. Okay, it's got butterflies, it's got a little butterfly handle, butterflies on it, and the brand is Formalities by Baum Brothers. I know some of their stuff can do pretty well, and some is like so-so. But I looked these up, and even though they had a couple in a different colorway, I left those and I just got these because I found specific ones and solds that look just like this, and they had sold for about $20 a piece. So I went ahead and grabbed that. Those will go on Ruby Lane. I did pay $5 each on those, so I was kind of hoping for a little bit more than 20, but maybe I can squish it up to 25. We'll see. And then also, because I was still working my way through the kitchen section, I found these napkin rings, and these were $1.50 per box. So nothing special. They're William A. Rogers. I just feel like it was funny. I showed my husband and I said, I feel like I've sold these before, but I couldn't find any record of it in my emails. So I don't know where I sold them, or like, did I try to sell them and they didn't sell? It's the problem with relying on your memory. But I just thought it would be a good time of year. People do kind of make their tables a little fancier, and so these napkin rings might sell. I will keep you posted. I don't expect like big money for those. Pampered Chef, same kind of thing. I picked this up. Some of the Pampered Chef little tools and gadgets. I don't pick up like the bread tubes that you see everywhere or anything. But there are certain Pampered Chef gadgets that do pretty well. They get discontinued. So this one is a cherry and olive pitter. And I do have occasion to use one. I have a vintage one I use. But anyway, this was new in box, and so I decided to go for it. It sells for about $20 as well, and I paid $3 for that. Okay, so I will not keep you in suspense any longer. I had moved out of kitchenware into like the next room of the building, and they still had some kitchen stuff kind of spilling over into that section. And so I was looking, and there was this Otagiri little planter, but then it was kind of chipped, and I was like, huh. And then I looked down and I saw this. And I thought, okay, let me tell you my thinking. I tell you, I do not know what I'm doing most of the time, but my gut sometimes tells me things. So I looked down and I thought, wow, that is awesome looking. People love crows, ravens, whatever. I was like, that is really awesome. And so then I flipped it over, and you pottery people might recognize the mark. It's rookwood. So I do know enough about pottery to have recognized that. And that makes sense, right? A rook is another name for a crow. Or a crow is another name for a rook. But anyway, this is how my brain was either so foggy, or I just was like thinking too fast, right? So it has Roman numerals underneath that were XXIV. Now I know my Roman numerals, no problem. But my first thought was the year 2004. I'm thinking instead of like MM, I'm thinking XX, because it's just like I knew once we hit 2000s, like the Roman numerals went from MCM to like MM. So I had this double Roman numeral thing in my head. So I'm like, okay, so it's not that old. So then I'm like, and all you pottery people are laughing at me right now, but I go on my phone and I Google search it. Sure enough, it's Rookwood. I knew that. So then or maybe I went straight to eBay. I can't remember. No, I was looking on Google because there was no eBay listings. It was all these other like articles and things. So I go to eBay and the first listing I see is like for $500 something. And I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, well, mine's a repro. And so then I like scroll down, I go to solds, and there's one sold that says 1926 or something like that for like $150. And another one, you know, all of them were like old. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So I stop and then I look at the, I think I opened the listing to see what the back of theirs looked like for the $150 one. And they have those same Roman numerals. And it was like 1927, I think it was. And I look at and I see the mark is the same. And I'm like, duh, that's not 2000, that's 20, right? So XX, 10 plus 10 is 20, and then plus the 4, right? So I was like, oh, duh. So mine is from 1924. Isn't that exciting? And I think the other part that threw me off was like, it looks like it could have been made in 2004, right? Like it's in such good shape. So I get home, I'm showing my husband, I'm like, oh my goodness, look, this is sold for $120 or $130, $150. And then I was like, but I haven't checked WorthPoint. So he starts looking at WorthPoint, and we've got prices that are like $400 and $300 and $250. And I was like, holy snap. So we did find, you know, some articles that it's kind of a well-known pottery trivet by Rookwood, very collectible. There's only 2 listed right now, and they were up in like the $600 to $700, and they had it marked down to $500 something on sale. Now I realized as I went through my pricing on WorthPoint, I told my husband, okay, 2021 pricing is still not 2023, right? We've got an issue going on right now where things are not selling for as high as they did. Then there's also some pricing was really high in like 2017. Again, that was a whole different ballgame back then. So the most recent one was January 2023, and it sold, according to WorthPoint, it sold for $400. Okay, so that's kind of the one I'm gonna base mine on. My husband said, oh, you should start like at 500 and then you have room to go down. So we'll see. It would still be lower than the other person. And the other person, he's got different years. Like he doesn't have the 1924. And I realized that one of the highest price selling ones back in like 2017 looks like it was that same seller. And he sold one for $500 and something. So I think they're just basing it off the price they got for one of the other ones that they sold. And so anyway, I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments down below. I think I'm going to shoot for about 400. I think I'll start there. And not bad. And guess I paid, it was priced at $4, and then it was kitchenware, so it was half off. So I paid $2 for this awesome trivet. So that was my best find. I got ahead. I'm going to I shared that with you in the middle of the haul. I have a couple more things to share. Clothing. Clothing's not as interesting. I mean, some clothing can be. I just told you the story of my denim jacket that sold to the movie star, right? So it can be interesting. So I picked up this Harley Davidson t-shirt. It's from Jackson Hole. And the date on the front for the picture is 2007, and it is made in the USA. But you know, it's 2007, so it's not single stitch or anything like that. But you know, that's not huge money. There is big money in some Harley Davidson t-shirts, but it has to do with the emblem and the picture on the front being, it's printed on it, it'll say 3D emblem, and those can be worth big money. I got a pair of pants. These were on the new rack that was being put out soon, and the brand is Outdoor Research. And they're just men's very lightweight hiking pants. I think they need to be washed. They have a couple schmutz spots. And then I picked up this jacket, this tapestry jacket, Southwest design. The brand is Flashback. Now I told my husband, I said, I had another Flashback tapestry jacket that I had high hopes for, and it took forever to sell, and it finally sold on Poshmark for $18, so not super exciting. But as you can tell, this one's cropped. I think it'll do better. It's in really good condition, and I liked the colors and the print on it, so I think it'll go a little bit faster. And I paid $4 for that one. I don't know, what do you think? I think it's a trendy enough Southwest kind of look. I think it'll do good. And then I picked up this pullover kind of windbreaker type sweatshirt. It was only $2, and it was by Nike. So I'm like, it's so funny. They were only asking $4 for this, and that's like the lowest of some of their clothing prices that they usually do. So I'm like, somebody didn't like the Yankees. I'm from New York. I mean, I'm not a sports fan, so I, you know, I don't care one way or the other, but I think it's funny. So anyway, I only paid $2 for that, and I found a comp for this exact one. This one's not vintage. I wouldn't call it vintage. There is one that looks very similar that has a vintage tag that sells, but this exact one has sold for $65. So who's laughing now? Okay, last one is the only reason I got this one. It's not vintage rain spooner, but it is new with tags, and it was sold, it was new with tags, but it was sold at Macy's, okay? And I paid $5 for it. It's a newer design. I think the tag says 2021 or something like that. But it's the reverse printed fabric and a good size, good color. Might only be like $25, $30 or something like that. But if you would like to know more about vintage Hawaiian shirts, I do have a video for that in case you are new to my channel. So I will go ahead and put a link to that here at the end of the video. And anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the little thrift haul. It was just kind of a day in the life, you know, average kind of thrifting day for me in Montana here, but definitely found something super interesting, and it just makes this job so much fun. Leave me a comment down below. Any thoughts or concerns or added information you can give me about any of my thrift finds. I always appreciate hearing from you guys, and we'll see you later.